back to another video. My name is Shah and this is Thoroughly Enjoy Books. As you can see, I'm in a bit of a different location today, which is why we're doing a very simple Q&A because things have been going on over the last few weeks. As I'm sure you're aware, you've heard me mention things in videos and on social media, but I haven't gone into too much detail. And I won't be going into too much more detail in this video either, but I did just want to do a really quick video talking to you about some of the things that you've been asking and some of the things that have been going on. So I put a call out for questions and I'm just gonna quickly go through them all. There's not too many, so it'll be a nice quick video, but there's enough that I'm actually quite happy with the call out results. Quite a few of you asked me the pros and cons of living alone. So what is the best thing and what is the worst thing? I never lived alone until July 2020, which is obviously in the middle of the pandemic. Before then, I'd always lived either with my parents or with students in student houses, with boyfriends, or in house shares. So in July 2020, I moved out of a house share because it became apparent that working from home was going to be a long-term thing, and where I was living, it just wasn't feasible. I couldn't assure confidentiality and I couldn't make sure that everything was private, basically, and I couldn't make sure that everything worked. So I decided to move, and I think living alone during a pandemic was probably one of the worst things I could ever do, because obviously a pandemic is lonely AF. That for me has been the worst thing about living alone, is just how lonely it has been. But I don't think that would have been a problem for me had it not been during a pandemic, because I'd have been able to see my friends. I probably would have only been in the house from about 9 p.m, which is what time I was usually getting home pre-pandemic. I usually had some sort of book club on, or I was at the gym, or I would work late, or I had some sort of social thing going on. So it was only during the pandemic that loneliness really hit me, and I'm looking forward to going back to living alone whenever that may be, whenever my health recuperates, because I just love being alone. I love being in control of my own food shopping, so my own meals, my own space, my own bedtime, playing the music however loud I want to, having unlimited access to the internet. I love being alone. There's just no rules. You make all your own rules. You can have as many books as you want and nobody is going to comment on them. You might get the odd comment when a friend is round saying, oh, you've got loads of books, but you don't have somebody saying, look, we don't have room for these, you need to get rid of them. So there's a lot of pros, and the pros of living alone very much outweigh the cons for me. But at the minute, I've had to return to my family home to look after my mental health because I was just not coping with being alone, with the isolation, and just everything that has gone on over the last few months. My mental health was just... That's the worst part about living alone, is the isolation and the loneliness. But everything else is a positive. I obviously got a few questions about books that I'm gonna talk about, because why wouldn't I? So Kayla asked if I was a book purist or a book devil. Basically, do I keep my books in good condition? And I feel like I'm somewhere in between. If I can get away with not bending a spine, then I won't bend a spine. But if I buy a book second hand and it's got a bent spine, I'm not that bothered unless it's like completely ruined. I don't really dog ear pages, but I don't really use bookmarks either. I kind of like either shove random things in or I turn the book upside down, which I know a lot of people hate. But I'm not like violent with my books. I don't intend to destroy them. I'll try and keep them nice, but it's not the end of the world if they look a bit worn after I've read them. Victoria asked what book I would like to read again for the first time. And I don't want to be that person who just obviously says normal people. But actually, I don't think I would like to read that one again, because I feel like it would hurt me so much more if I read it again. I think a book I would like to read again for the first time would be Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit by Jeanette Winterson, which is another one of my all-time favourite books. And the first time I read it was for my dissertation in my undergrad, so it was like 6 years ago now. I really, really love that book, like two absolute pieces. It is my favourite book aside from Normal People. It means so much to me. So that book is about a young girl called Jeanette who is coming to terms with her sexuality, but she lives in a really religious, really conservative family. But it's set in the north of England, which, as you know, I'm a northern lass. And there's just so much in that book that resonates with me, and it dips into different fairy tales. So it's a very wonderful book, very magical, very weird, but one of my all-time favourite books. And as you know, Jeanette Winterson is one of my faves, so I would love to just read that book for the first time and just see how I feel now. Now that queer literature is my subject area, how would I feel about that book? Aoife also asked me about the book I wanted to read again for the first time, so that was a very popular question. So Anna's asked me what my top comfort books and top comfort movies are. I have some obvious ones. I mean, they're obvious if you know me, they're not obvious if you're looking for comfort films. But I find that for me, a comfort film or TV show is something that I just really love, and when I watch it I just feel safe. I know what's going to happen, and no matter what, I know that I like it. These aren't always happy things for me. I've learned that I don't like happy things, so my favourite comfort watches are obviously Normal People and Stranger Things, and I could rewatch them over and over and over again. I've watched Stranger Things at least 6 times each series all the way through. I have seen Normal People again at least 6 times by now, maybe 5. I absolutely adore it. But my favourite book and film that I watch when I need comfort is the Lara Jean series, so To All the Boys I've Loved Before. I enjoy the books immensely, I enjoy the film immensely, and I just sit and watch them non-stop on repeat. They're so comforting to me. I love them a lot. I've had a couple of questions about mental health and managing mental health. As you know, I talk about that quite openly on my channel. I don't feel like I'm in a good place to talk about mental health tips because I'm not handling it very well myself right now. I did do a live show with Victoria, Caris and Ashley a few days ago, which I'll leave a link to, which you can go and watch, where we talked about some of our coping mechanisms. For me, I think the most important thing is to make sure that I eat. My eating is usually the first thing that slips when I'm struggling with my mental health, because I tend to try and do everything, and that is the thing I prioritise least, which should be the thing I prioritise most. So making sure I eat, and that can either be cooking a good meal. Some days I just need to eat, you know, easy pot noodles, things that I can shove in the oven, but as long as I'm eating regularly. I also think it's really important to shower, do my hair and makeup, just make an effort. If I look good or if I feel like I've made an effort, then I generally feel a lot better. A lot of people obviously say going for walks and stuff. That is one that I struggle with a lot. I don't actually feel better a lot of the time when I've gone for a walk. Sometimes I do, but also I try not to put pressure on myself to do things that I should do. So I tried to do a walk every single day of 2021, and I got 6 days in and stopped and realised that the pressure I was putting on myself to do that walk every day was making me not enjoy it. So now it's more a case of, if I want to go for a walk, I will go for a walk, and if I don't, then I won't. I also find writing to be something that really helps with mental health as well. I am a very cathartic writer. A lot of what I write is from my own feelings. I don't think you'll ever read something that I've written and not be able to see what it is based on. I'm kind of like Taylor Swift in that regard. Like, everything I write has some basis in fact, which does mean that if I ever publish something, I probably need to speak to a lot of people to make sure I don't get sued. That's a conversation for another time, but I think that is really important. Going on to Olivia's question, which was how I manage my mental health while studying at uni. This is weird because studying at uni helps my mental health. Because I work full time and because I have so much else that I tend to do, uni was always that thing that I did for my mental health. It was something I did completely separate from work. My master's degree is not related to my career at all, and you know, I wanted that to be completely separate, and I found that going to uni really helped me to switch off from the work. That's a bit of a weird one. I can't really offer any further advice with that because, like I said, uni is a coping mechanism for me, and I don't think that's necessarily healthy. I guess one way that I have done that is my master's is in modern and contemporary literature, and one of the options on my course was to do a couple of creative writing modules. I selected a creative writing module because, as I mentioned, it's something that does help with my mental health, but also because I think it takes that pressure off having another literature module. I don't have to read 6 books now because I have to write instead. And yes, obviously I do have to read some creative writing books. That's very different from reading heavy novels. So that's kind of what I did, making sure that my modules were things that I was interested in and maybe took a little bit of pressure off me. Rosie asked about incorporating self-care when mental health is particularly bad. Again, I think it's just making sure that I do eat, even if that's ordering a takeaway. At least then I might not be cooking, but I'm at least eating. Making sure that I take some downtime. I've really been listening to ambient mood rooms lately, so sticking on like a crackling fireplace or a cafe background sound, things like that, they've really helped me. And making sure I get stuff done, so making to-do lists and checking things off, even if it's things like have a shower, eat a meal. Also crying. Crying is really cathartic. Somebody did ask what my favourite ambient playlist was as well. So my favourite ambient mood room is one called, it's a 1940s room, hang on, it's called Winter Ambience New York of 1940s with fireplace and music. It is my favourite one. I stick that on when I'm studying, when I'm reading. It just feels like so calming to me, and I think it's because I have this obsession with a video game called Mafia, particularly Mafia 2, which is set in 1940s New York, where it's got all that 1940s music in the background. It's got snowing at certain points, and I think that is just such a calming environment for me. So this is a room where you're sat in a living room, the fireplace is on, and you can see New York City out of the window, and it's snowing, and it's got 40s music, jazz music in the background. It's lovely. I really enjoy this. Ooh, okay. So Katie's asked me a couple of questions about, again, living alone. So she says, how do you find cooking for yourself when you're living alone, and what is your comfort food? So what I find really helps me is I batch cook. If I'm going to cook a meal, I will make enough to last me a few meals. I don't do any of this one person portioning because I find that really stressful. Trying to get portions right for one person, no, I can't do it. I end up with too much food or too little food, and it's stressful. So I just follow the recipe exactly as it is, even if it's like 4 or 6 people, and then I just save what I don't eat. And I find that is the best way to cook for myself. I have quite a few vegetarian cookbooks because obviously I'm vegetarian, and I'll pick a meal out of there every now and then. I do find myself drifting towards like familiar recipes. If I find a new recipe, I'll kind of repeatedly make that. So at the minute, my favourite one is a satay sweet potato curry. I also make a spinach and sweet potato curry with chickpeas. I make a good like pasta bake, that if I just want junk food, pasta bake, pizzas, things like that. I don't really have any specific tips, but finding something that you do like and making that, and then adjusting it to further suit your tastes. Do that. And she also asks if I have any plans to meet up with booktubers after all this is over. Of course I do, and it's really annoying because I keep making these plans that have to be cancelled. So I obviously want to meet up with Shannon. I keep talking about like trips to Ireland and London with, you know, Leanne and Aoife and Caris, Anna, Rosie. We all like talk in the chat all the time about getting together and meeting up. It's just a case of when, and I try not to be too set on making plans because I really struggle when plans get cancelled. So yes, there's plans afoot. Me and Shannon will get our mojitos one day. We just don't know when. There's a couple of money questions that I'll come to, and then there's a couple of Taylor Swift questions. So starting off with the money, Aoife asked what my best money saving tips are, and Shannon asked me specifically about saving money for a deposit because that is something that I have been doing. Now, without going into too much detail about my personal finances, I'm very lucky that I have been employed throughout this pandemic. My job was never really at risk. I'm an essential worker. I did work throughout this pandemic, hence why I'm now off sick, because it was a lot of pressure. But I think the best thing to do is set up a separate bank account, work out how much expendable income you have, and then set up a limit to send weekly into that second bank account. So I do it where £50 every Monday comes out my bank account straight into my savings account. At the end of the month, £200, which is the maximum you can put into a Help to Buy ISA, comes out of that savings account straight into the ISA, and then I keep putting that set amount of money in. So obviously, depending on how many Mondays there are in the month, that's either £200 or £250. So £200 comes out of the savings at the end of that month, which sometimes leaves £50 extra. I also, at the end of every like 6 to 4 months, or if I've got a bit extra in my current account, I'll just lump that into that savings account as well. Definitely having separate bank accounts is really important. At the minute, I have my current account, I have a savings account, and I have my Help to Buy ISA. So 3 separate bank accounts that all have different things. I try never to use the savings account, although things like cars, those tend to be bigger payments, so those come out the savings account rather than the current account because the money is there. That is one way. The other thing I can do is sometimes I sell things and then the money from that goes into my savings account as well. So whenever I sell something, I don't tend to use the money for myself unless I need it. It goes into a savings account, and it just builds up a little bit of extra income. Small amounts build up a lot quicker and you notice them less. You kind of adjust yourself to the way your income is now. If you've got £50 a week coming out of your bank account, anyway that you don't need, you don't notice it. I know that's quite privileged, I know not everyone is the same. So for example, before I got my current job and before I paid off my credit cards, etc., it was a smaller amount. It was £25 a month that I would just put into my savings. And over time, as I've got better at saving money or not spending so frivolously, like I don't spend a lot of money on clothes, for example, I realised that I had a lot more money weekly that I could just offset to different accounts. And then the last questions then were about Taylor Swift. Shannon says, if you had to describe yourself using only Taylor Swift songs, what would they be? I find this really difficult because I obviously love Taylor Swift and I love all of her music, but I don't know whether she means, you know, describing myself or things that I relate to the most, because I feel like the song that sounds the most like me is Death by a Thousand Cuts. I also have a very strong connection to Tied Together with a Smile. That's all about, you know, faking being okay, and I'm very good at faking being okay. So definitely that one. But I also think I need to have one of her cheerier songs as well. I do think my personality when I'm not struggling with my mental health is really bubbly and like optimistic. So I'm going to go with an unpopular opinion and say Me. I know a lot of people don't like Me, but I feel that song so much, and I feel like it's really important to value yourself and be happy in yourself, because you need to be. And I do have quite a high opinion of myself, and I think this is why I find it so hard sometimes, particularly when I go through breakups, because I'm like, I'm amazing. Well, why can't you see I'm amazing? So that song in particular, and I think just any songs really where she talks about caring for other people. So Afterglow off the Lover album, you know, it's talking about wanting to wrap people up and not let them go, and that's kind of who I am. I'm a very caring person. I want to make things better for everybody. So yeah, I think a section of those maybe. Although I realise I haven't picked any songs off my favourite Taylor Swift album, which is Reputation, and I think that's because I'm not that angry a person. That is a very angry album, and I think that as much as maybe I need to get my anger out at some points, maybe I don't do it as much as I do, as much as those songs do. Tied Together with a Smile, Death by a Thousand Cuts, Afterglow, and what was the other one I said? Me. Those are probably the songs that suit me the most. Also Happiness. I really like Happiness. I'm very much someone who looks forward to the future, so those are probably the 5 I would go for. And Aoife asked me to rank every Taylor Swift album from best to worst, and I can do this very, very easily. I love all of her albums, let's put that out there. I have a group chat. I'm going into the group chat because I ranked it and that was a definitive one. Hang on. It's very easy for me, but now she's got so many albums, I'm like, oh wait, where were we? Okay, here we go. Coming in at number 9 is 1989. In number 8 is Debut. At 7 is Fearless. 6 is Folklore. 5 is Speak Now. 4 is Red. 3 is Lover. 2 is Evermore. And 1 is Reputation. I think that is a definitive list. I think that is exactly the ranking that I'll go with, which surprises me because 3 of her most recent ones are quite high up, and I always thought Speak Now and Red would forever be my favourite, but over time I think my music taste has just changed a little bit, so her more poppy ones have risen up a bit, but 1989 I don't really like. So those are all the questions that I have for you today that everyone has asked me. I think I answered every single one. I like doing Q&As, they're just nice to sit back and relax. I've got 3 minutes now that I need to wrap up this and go make a sandwich and then go on another Zoom call. So I'm gonna wrap this up now. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any more questions for me, do leave them down below. I'd like to actually maybe do a full Q&A on Taylor Swift. That would be amazing. So if you've got any specifically Taylor Swift questions, leave them down below. I might do that video really, really soon. But I really enjoyed doing this and just having a bit of a laid back chat with you. I don't do this very often. And yeah, part of the reason I wanted to do it is because I didn't really have any ideas. As you know, I'm back with my family for a few weeks, so I'm trying to figure out a filming location. It probably won't stay like this because I know this isn't the greatest. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. As usual, I'll leave my links down below to my Twitter and Goodreads and all that good stuff. Come and follow me on there, talk to me about books, and I can't wait to see you in another video very, very soon. Take care. Bye.